In my years of coaching, I've made it very clear that you need to be strong and run fast to get selected. But in many cases, the biggest obstacle to your success is not your training, it's actually your body composition. After all, how many fat soldiers run a 12-minute 2-mile? And how many skinny guys can squat 315? In this video, I'll share body composition data from Special Forces assessment and selection, and then guide you step by step on how to apply it to your training and nutrition. In 2022, Military Medicine published a study looking at 795 candidates at SFAS between 2015 and 2017. The purpose of this study was to analyze the extent to which anthropometrics and body composition affected selection success. The top predictors in order from greatest to least were lean mass, body fat percentage, bone mineral density, body mass, fat mass, bone mineral content, height, and body mass index. Candidates with lean mass in the top 25% of their class had 6 times higher odds of being selected than those in the bottom 25%. And this makes sense because lean mass is highly correlated with ruck march times, and fast ruck march times are the greatest predictor of selection success. It's also worth calling out though that lean mass was not positively correlated with any other performance metric. In fact, sit-up numbers actually went down as lean mass increased. But don't dwell on the fact that your sit-ups may go down, because sit-ups and calisthenics are largely irrelevant after you've gotten your foot in the door. Candidates in the ballpark of 120 pounds of lean mass had a 20% selection rate. At 136 pounds, their chances were 27%. At 145 pounds, 31%, and at 161 pounds, they had a 58% selection rate. The gray on this chart represents selected candidates, and the black represents non-selected candidates. You can see that as lean mass increases, the share of gray is increasing on the chart. One important caveat to this data is that lean mass does not control for height. Lean mass is your total body weight minus your weight in fat, so taller people are naturally going to have more lean mass and bias this data. Unfortunately, the researchers didn't control for height with lean mass, but they did for total body mass, which is another word for total body weight. Here's the data where they controlled for the class average height of 5'10". You can see that a candidate standing 5 feet 10 tall and about 158 pounds has an 18% chance of getting selected. Being 175 bumps that up to 30%, and at 189 he peaks at 36%. Going all the way up to 211 pounds, his chances of success remain around 35%. So if you had any doubts about whether you should be strength training and building muscle mass, this should ameliorate those concerns. But before you buy mass gainer to bulk up, I want to put these numbers into context. First, everyone at selection has already been screened through a few layers of endurance checks, starting from the day they enlisted with an 18X contract, or submitted a package, or went to SFRE. So the pool of candidates is already filtered down to those who have a decent level of fitness and can move their body. If you're slow or borderline in terms of your running, adding more weight is only going to slow you down. For every pound you put on, it's going to add about 2 seconds to your mile time, so you better be improving your endurance faster than you're putting on weight. And while you want to have a good amount of lean mass, the data also backs up that you don't want to carry dead weight. The candidates with the lowest percentage body fat are 4 times more likely to get selected than the fattest. Candidates at about 14% body fat had a 51% chance of getting selected, while those around 25% body fat had just a 13% chance of getting selected. How is it the case that having more lean mass is good, but more fat mass is bad? Well, lower body fat percentage is correlated with better physical performance across every measure, including the APFT, calisthenics, land navigation, runs, obstacle courses, and rucking. The weight you have from lean mass, which is largely muscle, can generate force and be an asset to improve performance, while fat, on the other hand, is not helping you. I've told this to many overweight guys who are training and discouraged about their run or ruck times. If you're carrying an additional 30 pounds of fat and running a 9-minute mile, that's actually not bad. At that weight, you're basically ruck running with 30 pounds. Once that dead weight is gone, you'll be so much faster and lighter on your feet. But just remember, your body composition and nutrition should serve your performance goals, not some arbitrary aesthetics goal. Some of you may be sitting at 12% and think about how much better you'll perform at single-digit body fat. That's not always the case. We all have natural set points for our body fat, and the more we deviate from those set points, the more our hunger cues and body will work against us to pull us back. So if you're performing well at 15 or 17% body fat, don't diet to the extent that it disrupts your performance, recovery, or well-being. One aspect of training I am particularly interested in is bone mineral density, which is an indicator of bone strength. Bone mineral density was strongly correlated with selection success, with candidates in the top 25% having double the probability of being selected compared to the bottom 50%. What's interesting though is bone mineral density was not correlated with any performance improvement in running, rucking, or any other measure. Additionally, the study authors didn't share any insights or even have a hypothesis on why this was the case. I'm throwing out an idea here, which is that those with with lower bone mineral density had a higher incidence of injuries, which resulted in voluntary withdrawals or medical drops. That said, I don't have any data to back this up. There are a few ways we know of to improve bone mineral density. The most effective is heavy strength training. The way it works is that your bones are in a constant state of breaking down and building up, and up until your mid to late 20s, the scale is tilted heavily in favor of building up your bones. That's why it's so important to be lifting heavy weights during these formative years to accumulate more bone tissue. After age 30, your bone mineral density will plateau, and then it's all about maintaining and staving off future losses rather than building more. For most men in their 30s, especially for those who are inactive, they'll lose between 0.5 and 1% of their bone mineral density each year, and that percentage of loss only goes up as you get older. Now, how do you prevent that? You have to do your strength training. And while we can't take steps to improve bone mineral density or stave off its loss, reduce body fat, and increase muscle mass, there is nothing you can do about your height. When we look at this chart and table, we do see an association between increased height and selection success. In terms of physical performance, shorter stature was associated with improved push-ups and pull-ups, and being taller was associated with faster ruck and run times. But if we control for total body mass being 183 pounds across all heights, the association between being taller and improved selection success mostly goes away, except for those 5'8" or shorter. In other words, if you're 183 pounds, being 6'2" didn't help you any more than if you were 183 pounds and 5'9". However, being 5'8" or under and 183 pounds did reduce your odds. Now, what should you make of this data? If you're a little chubby, or if you're skinny, or if you're on the shorter side, I'm sure you didn't like hearing that other candidates in your position today performed worse. But now that you've heard this data, which 99% of other people training for selection haven't heard, you can take proactive steps towards your goal to get better. And it starts by evaluating your body composition. If you're skinny, muscular, or skinny fat, think about where you want to be, and I want you to put it down on paper. Next, look at your lifestyle. What are the simple changes you can make to maximize your body composition? Start with simple things like cutting out soda, or to stop buying sugary breakfast cereals, or start eating lean protein every evening. These are all commonly overlooked, but really simple changes that will maximize your progress. Next, write down what your mile time, squat, deadlift, and overhead press are. There's a good chance that if you're overweight, your running needs work, or if you're skinny, you also need to spend more time in the gym. So getting your body composition in check is going to reveal the results of your training much more quickly. And if you want to learn the world's smartest way to train for selection, click the video on the screen.